The violence against Hindus in Leicester and Birmingham has been followed by a stretch of hate speeches. Some of these Islamists say they will break Hindus. They talk about eating people alive and also threatening temples. And some of them, in fact, also speaking like terrorists. The UK police still haven't arrested them, reportedly. Listen in to one such individual who is roaming scot-free.
Of Birmingham will not tolerate the disrespect of our Prophet, peace be upon him, and there will be outcomes from your actions. You will have repercussions for your actions. We have been trained from birth that we must defend the honor of our Prophet, and we will lay our life on the line.
Nothing. I've been here for the last hours. The brothers are here. Their faces are concealed only due to the fact of the discrimination by the BJP, the Conservative Party and the RSS. We are not here to cause any harm, but we will defend our people and use reasonable and necessary force to stand and defend our honor. Just a quick one. So I urge brothers and sisters, and remember something, the mainstream narrative will paint us out to be some extremists who are covering our face. No. We are standing here because we believe in the plight of our people. We believe that our people are being targeted for no other reason for being a Muslim. How much should we take? Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Kashmir, Lebanon, how much should the Muslim community take? We will not allow BJP activists, and moreover, if Hindu temples like this do not support the BJP or the RSS, if Hindu temples like this do not, one second. If Hindu temples like this do not stand by the BJP and the RSS, they need to come out in open official statements and state that they don't stand by the BJP and RSS. We will not accept half-hearted condemnation. We will not accept imams coming out and saying they don't stand without valid proof. We've had enough, and the people of Birmingham will stand up. Takbir!
Shocking statements there, brazen provocations, and the most chilling aspect, these people are still free, scot-free. Now, after the violence against Hindus, now these Pakistan Islamists and their supporters in the UK have planned to gherav the Indian High Commission in London, a tactic that is not new. Jaishankar had raised the issue of security of Indians to the UK minister. Why is Liz Truss allowing all of this to happen? The PM surely must now act, is the big question. Akshat Jaganmohan, current affairs commentator, is joining us live from Leicestershire. Saurav Dutt, author and political analyst, is joining us live from London. Sarah L. Gates, human rights advocate, is live with us. We also have Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat, joining us live on the broadcast. Let me bring you in here first, Akshat, because you're joining us from the place which has been the hub of these protests, the hub of this violence. What is the latest from ground zero that you can share with us?
I think at present, everything is pretty quiet, it's calm. But I think one point which I would like to make is that mainstream media has kind of portrayed as though all the events in Leicester and beyond has happened as a consequence of a cricket match. I think that's a very sort of simplistic way of looking at things, because if it was because of the cricket, it would have been limited to Leicester. It wouldn't have then spread to Birmingham. It wouldn't have spread to Nottingham yesterday. It's going to London today. So I do think that somewhere, these events have been pre-planned. They're orchestrated. And I think the mainstream media's coverage of the events also has not been as comprehensive as it should have been. The other matter which is quite concerning is that while mainstream media, the likes of the BBC, The Economist, they haven't specifically targeted Hindus, but they have done in the last few days a hit job on the BJP, the RSS, the Hindutva ideology. And basically, I think what many Hindus feel is that Hindutva is being used as a convenient synonym to sort of target Hindus, much in the same way in which Jews are targeted under the garb of Zionism.
Okay, now we're also hearing that there is a protest also being organized. What more can you share with us about that?
Are you talking about the protest in London?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the protest in London does not appear to be an event that is planned by Islamists. It appears to be linked to an organization called the South Asian Solidarity Group, which is a left-leaning organization. But again, the protest is against the BJP, RSS, Hindutva. Now, one of the points also which I think I should mention is, while there is a lot of criticism of Hindutva, and many in the media saying that Hindutva goons are responsible for some of the violence, what I would like to know is, how do you know this? Because we saw pictures of Indian fans wearing blue jerseys, but from that you can't really tell that they are Hindutva goons. They could be Hindu, they could be Muslim, they could be Christian, they could be Sikh, and let's assume even if they are Hindus, how do you know that they're proponents of Hindutva? Do they walk around with "I am Hindutva" written on their foreheads? So I think a lot of assumptions are being made. I think what's happening in reality is that many within the UK, whether it's the left wing, whether it's the Islamic far right, have been unhappy with the dispensation in India. And I think the violence that erupted during the Asia Cup, I think that was just a convenient excuse to start a propaganda campaign against the BJP and the RSS.
Okay, let me also, in fact, quickly at this point bring in our other guests as well. Saurav Dutt, let me draw you in here, Saurav, what you are, what you're making of this violence in Leicester, and also these brazen threats coming in from these Islamist goons, which we've just played out for our viewers, talking literally like terrorists.
What we've seen with this horrendous display are two forms of violence. There has, of course, been the physical act of violence towards temples, towards flags, towards individuals in their houses, and that is to be condemned. But we've also seen a different kind of violence, and that is the erasure of Hindu polity and Hindu agency through the media, which has completely maligned and skewed the narrative against all Hindus. So there have been two horrific forms of violence here, which have been very carefully coordinated and orchestrated by these Islamist groups. It's quite telling the techniques that they have used and the specific language they have used. They are not just referring to their the offense that they believe that they have been having to deal with. They're talking about the proactive nature of Hinduism and British Indians themselves and Indians around the world. They've taken the opportunity to attack the very fabric of what Hindus believe, their culture, their civilization, their practices, and most chillingly of all, they've clearly laid down the guidelines and the markers by which we have to respect their beliefs. They've been very clear to say that they allegedly have no problems with good British Hindus, but they do have a problem with those who happen to espouse views that adhere to the BJP and the RSS. I would concur with your first guest. How on earth do they know who is an RSS follower and who is not? How do they know who is a BJP follower and who is not? What they really want to say is that if you fall in line with what we dictate, we will not harm you. But if you dare to transgress, you dare to question us, then the violence will be coming. That is perhaps the most chilling threat of all. And unfortunately, this is not the beginning of the end. It is the end of the beginning. We're seeing more and more coordinated protests, and I use that term loosely, against the High Commission, against different areas of the UK, and they want to attack not just the physical infrastructure that represents Hindu Dharma, but the thought process as well. And the behavior of the mainstream media has been abhorrent, absolutely disgusting, in completely defaming an entire religion and civilization, and that must be condemned.
Yes, and also the fact that obviously the administration there, the government is not doing much to stop this, Saurav.
Yes, it's remarkable the silence by which the government has acted, should I say, and I use that term loosely. They have been completely stunted into submission by the sheer scale of Islamist thuggery, online and offline. We've seen this before with the grooming gangs, we've seen this with the Lady of Heaven film, we've seen this with schools. Once Islamists decide to lay siege to a certain situation, Only their narrative, only their emotions, only their feelings prevail. Everyone else is seen as intrusive and wrong. So the fact that the authorities have had nothing to say doesn't surprise me. They have simply stood by while saffron flags have been burned, while organizations have made all sorts of disgusting threats on social media. None of these tweets, none of these messages have been taken down. They all exist in the ether, and they send out a clear message to Hindus in Britain that our views are irrelevant to them.
Okay, let me also, in fact, at this point, bring in Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, former Indian diplomat, before I also take in another international perspective from Sarah Gates. Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, really shocking state of affairs in Leicester, and now there are signs, as Akshat was pointing out earlier, that this violence could now spread to London, as one of the protesters has also so chillingly said in a video we played out earlier. Ambassador Mukherjee, how are you reacting to these fresh developments, and what can India do to save our diaspora there?
Well, this was bound to happen, Uday, because the Indian diaspora in UK, which is one of our largest diasporas, and which comprises of Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, and all religions, are increasingly prosperous, have made a mark for themselves, and then, of course, we almost had a person of Indian origin, Rishi Sunak, becoming Prime Minister. So this is a strong reaction. Secondly, let's not forget that United Kingdom, at the end of the day, and Winston Churchill from the Conservative Party was the architect of partition and the creation of Pakistan as a nation to keep India permanently down. They have mollycoddled the Mirpuris. They are afraid of handling the jihadis, and they have stood by and allowed a small section of Muslim radicals to give the erroneous impression that India is a Hindu nation, or that the Indian diaspora is divided between Hindus on one hand and other religions on the other. That is a lie. We are a secular country, and our diaspora consists of representatives of all religions, and the United Kingdom should know better than anyone that they need to defend British citizens of different faiths. After all, that is what King Charles III has said. British citizens of different faiths, whether it's an attack on a temple or a mosque or a gurdwara, it does not matter. They are obliged to uphold the rule of law. If this situation gets out of control, let's not forget that Liz Truss is obliged to put this down with a firm hand, or give the erroneous impression that she is being small-minded and in a way paying back Rishi Sunak for daring to put in his candidature. So the final thing I want to say here is that using Hindutva as a tool, I heard the ranting, or saying that either you come out firmly against the BJP and Hindutva, or we are going to fix you, is again something that needs to be put down with a firm hand, because BJP or Hindutva are separate from each other, and every Hindu is not BJP or Hindutva, but everybody in United Kingdom has the right, as in India, to follow his own religion. What should the Indian High Commission do? The Indian High Commission has, over the years and in their consulates, have tried very hard to reach out to local communities. It's time now for the diaspora to become extremely active and try to destroy the fake narrative in British papers, on the social media, etc. They should use the same tools that we in India use to put down fake narratives. It's time for the Indian diaspora to come of age and to become aggressive, and remember to tell the Brits that just like in the Old Testament they said eye for an eye, it's time that the Indian diaspora did the same, and to tell the Brits and to tell these jihadi fundamentalists, excuse us, we are a secular nation. When you divided us, 80% of Muslims decided to stay on in India, and they are proud citizens of India. We will not tolerate, within India or outside India, any attempt to divide us in 2022. It didn't succeed in 47. It's not going to succeed in 2022 when the United Kingdom is a small, mediocre country adrift on the Thames with a GDP less than India. So you know what, Uday? I'm not really very concerned. There'll be some ranting and raving and it'll all come down, because there's one thing that the Brits hate is breakdown of rule of law. At some point, they will have to act. They better act now. Uday.
Absolutely. Let me also quickly now get in Sarah Gates. Sarah Gates, you know, how are you reacting to this violence? What do you believe is the possible cause for it? And also, why isn't the administration doing more to crack down? These are brazen hate speeches being made day after day as we have played out. And these individuals are scot-free and, you know, free to make these speeches again today or maybe tomorrow again?
Yes, they are, and there are laws in the UK around hate speech and incitement to violence against persons on grounds of race, religion, you know, sexuality, and so forth. Protected classes, which this falls under, and that has to be prosecuted by the Crown Prosecution Service. So anybody who has information and who can forward, you know, as much as they can about these persons to the police can insist that these persons are charged and make sure that they are prosecuted with as much evidence as possible. So that's the first thing. And I do know that there have been some arrests on those grounds. I have heard, so we'll wait for confirmation on that. But I want to take this back a little bit, and I think we're all familiar with what we're hearing from these hate speeches. I do recall that Hindus made a big song and dance around an academic conference around the same time, which just happened to coincide with 9/11, called Dismantling Global Hindutva. And at that time, we all said, this is targeting Hindus. They say they're targeting the RSS. They say they're targeting the BJP. They say they're targeting VHP. They say they're targeting Hindutva and extremism, but there's no line between what makes up their definition and ordinary Hindu cultural practices. And we said to them, this is going to lead to hate crimes. This is hate speech, and this should not be allowed in Ivy League institutions. And in fact, some Hindu organisations did send large volumes of letters, petitions, and they did resist that. And for doing so, they were called extremists. And for rejecting this and for saying this is anti-Hindu rhetoric and it's very dangerous and we're worried about the consequences, we were all called extremists. I was called a terrorist. I was called Hindutva. I didn't even know what Hindutva meant then. Now I have a little bit of an idea. But, you know, they want to label us all Hindus in the West as hate groups, as terrorists, as extremists. They want to have the BJP and the RSS listed as a terror group. They've been saying this for decades. This isn't new. But what's new is actually some of the groups that have cropped up around the world. So we have a new set of what they, you know, assume as non-government organisations or pressure groups, lobby groups, which have cropped up all around the world. And they're there just designed to disenfranchise Hindus from any positions of authority, any positions of power, and they've been targeting them one by one. I've just seen Priti Patel being targeted by MEND in the UK as a person who needs to actively denounce the RSS. Otherwise, she's aligning herself with a terrorist group. And I commented under that and I said, they're not listed as a terror group in any part of the world. So I'm going to just make one point here, and that is that freedom of association, political freedom, and freedom of expression and freedom of religion are now under threat. Academic freedom, I will add, are now under threat in the West. Any person like myself who does work on anti-Hindu sentiment, which goes back 200 years, is being told that they are just simply shills for the BHP or the RSS. And in fact, no, I'm studying social justice. I'm studying systemic, institutionalised prejudice against Hindus that's been going on for centuries, ever since the colonial establishment. And the words anti-Hindu and Hinduphobia go through that whole set of historic archives, and the representation of Hindus is no different today than it was back then. So the only thing that's new is BJP's in power, and they're using BJP, who Sikhs, Muslims, Buddhists, Christians vote for as well, in a country where people don't vote for the BJP, they vote for UK politicians, to attack and target people with a Hindu identity. They don't ask questions. They don't know who these people are, what their political affiliation is. And I said this back last year when I did a program on this, and I was interviewed many times. I said, this is going to lead to hate crimes. But what we found out today from listening to this man speaking, this hate speech, which is inciting violence against Hindus, is the plight of Muslims in Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon, and Palestine is now the fault of the BJP. And I'll tell you how that happens. Because the South Asian Solidarity Group has Amrit Wilson. And if you go and have a look at what she's been writing, now they've got a whole, conspiracy theory that Hindu phobia isn't real. That Hindus are the only religion on the planet, the only culture, the only people. They never face any discrimination, not at all, right? So it's all just lies that we're saying, we don't like this hate speech, you've got to stop it. All of this hate speech that we're hearing it's just a fabricated conspiracy. This is the worst kind of gaslighting and psychological violence. It's coercive control. It's abuse. And these people who are organising these protests are doing this work in Ivy League institutions. And what they're saying is Hindutva equates to Zionism, right? Jews and Hindus, we'll keep those out of it because they're protected classes. But Hindutva, Zionism, Israel, India, and they are equating them with Nazis and white supremacists. And can you imagine after the Holocaust, equating a class of people who were genocided with the people who genocided them? It's just the most disgusting, most sickening rhetoric. And now they're bringing in the plight of Muslims, and that's all our fault because we're Hindu and we won't denounce. So it's Islamophobia. If you are put underneath arbitrary scrutiny for terrorism and you're a Muslim, it is Islamophobia if you're made to denounce the acts of persons that commit crimes that you have nothing to do with on the basis that you share the same faith. It's Islamophobia to stigmatise people.
Yes.
Right? Now, we know that's Islamophobia. Right. So why are they doing it to Hindus? Because they know what they're doing. I'm furious.
Absolutely.
It must stop.
My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.